My friends, the Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
This is a reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. On a Sabbath, Jesus went to dine at the home of one of the leading Pharisees, and the people there were observing him carefully. He told a parable to those who had been invited, noticing how they were choosing the places of honor at the table. When you are invited by someone to a wedding banquet, do not recline at table in the place of honor. A more distinguished guest than you may have been invited by him, and the host who invited both of you may approach you and say, "Give your place to this man." And then you would proceed with embarrassment to take the lowest place. Rather, when you are invited, go and take the lowest place, so that when the host comes to you, he may say, "My friend, move up to a higher position." Then you will enjoy the esteem of your companions at the table. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted. Then he said to the host who invited him, "When you hold a lunch or a dinner, do not invite your friends or your neighbors or your brothers or your relatives or wealthy people, in case they may invite you back and you may have repayment. Rather, when you hold a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. Blessed indeed will you be because of their inability to repay you. For you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." My friends, the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. You know, following this presidential campaign and just seeing how fractured our country seems to be and has become on so many different issues, you really wonder how to make things better. You wonder if there is a singular person, such as the next president, that can honestly change the manner or the direction of our country like they say they would. You wonder if there really are better days ahead or if better days are behind. I really do believe that we are in very strange and very difficult times. I came across this supplement printed by Faith magazine from the diocese that was put out in April of 2005 when now Saint Pope John Paul II had died. And I hadn't seen it for years, maybe not since it came out 11 years ago. So I spent some time reading through it. There was this big article about the Holy Father's official visits to the United States in his 26 years. There were 7 of them, to be exact, and that doesn't include the 5 days that he was in Denver when the United States hosted World Youth Day in 1993. The article is really about the official visits as Pope to the United States. Well, this article stated how much he would challenge the people of America, and he would quote long-standing icons of American culture. He would use the Declaration of Independence. He would quote Thomas Jefferson. He'd make reference to the Pledge of Allegiance, even the words of America the Beautiful once or twice. For those who you remember, if you remember his very first visit as the new Pope, he came to New York in 1979, probably about 4 or 5, less than 6 months since he became Pope. And if you remember then, he visited the Statue of Liberty. But in 1995, while in Giant Stadium, in his second visit to New York, Pope John Paul challenged our country about the very words that are on the base of the Statue of Liberty. The words state, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door." Well, John Paul said to America at that visit at Giant Stadium over 20 years ago, he said, "Is present-day America becoming less sensitive, less caring about the poor, the weak, the stranger, the needy. And then with a very forceful challenge, answering his own question, he then said, "It must not." Well, here we are, almost 22 years later. Nothing seems to have changed in our country. Sounds like it's gotten worse. So is there really anything that can be done honestly to make a difference? Is there anyone out there that can do that? Someone to change the direction of our country, do something, anything to make the future better than the past? Is there anybody out there that can do that? Or are we left to do it ourselves in the own little worlds that we are in? And if yes, well then what? This is the third time in Luke's gospel that Jesus enters the house of a Pharisee for a meal. And in the two previous times, the meal became a confrontation. For the Pharisees are trying to get Jesus to say something that would get him condemned to death. Luke says then, the people there were observing him carefully. What Jesus says, however, causes them to look inwardly at themselves, including his disciples who are present, especially the ones who joined him on his journey to Jerusalem, to his passion and death, and stayed. The reference to the seats or the places of honor was a challenge to become a person of honor by taking the lowest seat, by becoming a person of honor, by giving honor to the others present. Take care of others first, for that is what makes a disciple, and that is what brings a disciple one day to the banquet of his Father in heaven. If we allow ourselves to sit in humble places, make sure others have seats, make sure others are being taken care of, given comfort, are being given hope and peace and forgiveness, especially those in the most need, as he says, the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, the grief-stricken, the outcast, the widow down the street who never gets visitors, the family member that never gets an invite to Thanksgiving. If the disciple makes sure all of those people have seats, the Lord will bring all of us one day to the higher table of his Father in his glory. Jesus was telling his disciples and Pharisees that one doesn't get to the higher table by stepping ahead of or on everyone in front of him. One gets to God's table by bringing everyone else with them. God gave us another day when we woke up this morning and brought us also one day closer to him in his glory at that table. So I suppose that what we have done in our past, in the last years, is really irrelevant, for there's nothing we can do to change the mistakes of our past. They're done, they're gone, forget it. But it is very often said, today is the first day of the rest of our lives. So the future has unlimited possibilities, and the present, though, has tremendous needs. In 1987, right before John Paul left Detroit, he said to America, "The ultimate test of your greatness is the way you treat every human being, but especially the weakest and most defenseless ones." So may we be strong enough to accept the challenge of our discipleship. Search out for those who are in need of God's love, in need of hope and give them a place of honor in our lives as well as in their own. This is what the Lord wants. This is what America is all about. This is something that each of us can do personally to change the little world that we are in while in this big country. And this will assure us a place at the table of God in heaven. We are one day closer to that meal. Well, what is our next move? I wish you God's peace.